Hello, this is the Green Corn Rebellion Show, and I'm Gregory Harden II, and today I am here with Andy Fugate, who is the House Minority Floor Leader and State Representative for District 94 in the Oklahoma House of Representatives.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Stop what you're doing. Okay. If you like this video and you like the other content on my channel, please hit the like button on this video. Also, go hit subscribe, like right now. And also, when you hit subscribe, click the bell so you can get notifications whenever I put out a new video. So, thanks. Alright, enjoy the rest of the video.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
All right.
Feeling a little chewed up and spit out from the session, but otherwise.
Yeah. So tell me a bit about, give me a brief overview of the last few weeks of session.
Well, oddly enough, it was busy interspersed with doing nothing. And that sounds a little weird, but we would be busy on the floor, running till late in the evening, and then we'd wind up sitting on our thumbs because the Senate wasn't doing something we wanted them to do. And so we told them we weren't going to do anything until they did. And there was a lot of that kind of back and forth that was going on between the House and the Senate as they were jockeying for credit on things in the final days of the session, which is frustrating.
All right.
A lot of game playing going on as well. Bills that had language completely replaced at the very last minute without any heads up on it. And, the announcement of a negotiated budget agreement that quite literally we had members who were presenting portions of the budget in committee that, they confessed to the committee, we just got this 5 minutes before the committee. So, all bets are off.
Yeah. So tell me a bit about the budget and what was in it. What exactly all was in the budget?
Well, so we can start with kind of a high level overview. About 8.22% more spending than last year. And I teased my Republican colleagues about how I never thought I would hear the day when they would be crowing over the fact that they grew government by 8.22%. I said, you guys should just join my party and then we can have a real conversation about priorities. There was not a single place that they actually cut government at all. And, for somebody who sat and listened to a governor campaigning and a lot of the Republicans campaigning for office on a waste, fraud, and inefficiency, and were able to find 10% easy. I told them I was frankly disappointed that I didn't see any recommendations from any of the governor's appointees on anything that they could do differently to save the state money. So maybe we're running a little better than they thought, and maybe it's a little harder to actually find those inefficiencies than they thought. But they're at least I'm trying to get them to eat a little bit of crow over what it was they had been saying. In terms of the actual budget itself and the priorities, I'm disappointed that the state was not more judicious in doing investments with money. We had an opportunity, for instance, to in the last week of session, we had a bill that would remove the sales tax on commercial trailers, the sale of commercial trailers. And it's going to cost the state about $12.5 million. And we were told that we needed to do that because, in 2017, when they put the sales tax on motor vehicles, they inadvertently added it to commercial vehicles and commercial trailers. Well, in 2019, we removed it from commercial vehicles. And this year they said they wanted to remove it from commercial trailers. What they didn't remove it from was your car and my car. And so I introduced a motion as we were debating the bill to change that and apply the sales tax exemption to all motor vehicles, which is what it used to be. And that was voted down by all the Republicans. So I guess they believe that it's okay to take money from us, just not from businesses. In terms of other, tax cuts. We cut the corporate sale or the corporate income tax from 6% to 4%. And we were told we needed to do that so we could be competitive with the state of Texas. Well, it's true that Texas does not have a corporate income tax. I keep hearing that from my Republican colleagues, but I pointed out on the floor that they have something far different and far more expansive. They don't just tax income, they tax every single penny that a business earns. So all business revenues. And so they bring in gazillions of dollars off of this gross receipts tax. And yet businesses keep going to Texas. Why is that? Well, because of better quality of life there. They invest in their people. And here in Oklahoma, we choose instead to tar and feather our teachers and give them gag orders on what they can talk about in classrooms. And we fail to fund mental health, even though in 2016 the people voted that we should do that. So, lots of priorities that were wrong in this budget. The House Democrat caucus had requested, put forth a proposal to eliminate the sales tax, the state's portion of the sales tax on groceries. And that would have cost the state about $400 million, which is roughly what we're going to wind up giving away to corporations on the corporate income tax. So you and I could be paying less for groceries, but instead business owners will be taking more money home. Education got about $170 million, common education, which, sounds great. And I know teachers will welcome that. But one of the things I heard as part of that discussion was, well, we're going to include an additional $27 million for textbooks. So every single kid in the state of Oklahoma can have a textbook. And I thought, how can you be proud of the fact that we weren't funding a textbook for every kid? That just, it made me shake my head. It is enough money that we will return to House Bill 1017 classroom sizes for kindergarten and first grade students. And House Bill 1017 goes all the way back to 1991. So, way back 30 years, which may predate you.
Yeah.
But one of the things that 1017 said was that elementary school teachers should have no more than 20 students. Actually, it started at 20 and was supposed to go down to 18. We're putting it back to 20. So no more than 20 kids in a classroom. And that's really, really important for teachers as they're trying to maintain discipline and they're trying to do individualized instruction and trying to keep up with things like homework. You start getting those larger class sizes, it's a problem. So we gave them additional funding. And the law says if we gave them enough money, they had to go back to those 1017 class sizes for kindergarten and first grade. So we did our part. Now they're going to have to go hire teachers to go staff those classrooms. And I'm not sure where they're going to find them. We don't have enough teachers as it is. We're currently pursuing a warm body approach to putting people in classrooms instead of finding qualified teachers and certified teachers. And so I suspect there'll be more of that. Probably more than you wanted to know about the budget.
Oh no, that's plenty that I wanted to know. I had no idea about any of that.
Episodes of the Green Corn Rebellion Show were brought to you by Addie's Sugar Shack, located at 1228 North Interstate Drive in Norman, Oklahoma. Norman's new shaved ice concept. They feature 45 flavor options plus unique snacks. They love the vibe. It's worth the drive.
But yeah, the tax cuts, wasn't there also an income tax break as well?
Personal income tax. That went from 5% to 4.75%. So if your family makes somewhere between $50,000 and $54,000 a year, the projection is you're going to save about $82 in income tax. So a little bit of a cut. Half the median income in the state of Oklahoma is $52,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
So half of all households in Oklahoma make $52,000 or less. So for the vast majority of folks, including people who live in my district, they're going to see a nominal amount at best. I mean, $82 nothing to sneeze at. I mean, that's 12 hours worth of minimum wage employment,
Yeah.
right? But if you took a look at, say, the grocery tax, right? And we just cut the state side of grocery tax. If your family spends $300 a month on groceries, you would save $162 a year. So double what you'd get from that quarter point cut. Where it's really going to help folks is going to be on the top end. You know, if I'm making $300,000 a year, a quarter percentage point adds up. So, but for your common ordinary folks, that it's really kind of meaningless. There was an earned income tax restoration as part of that, which I was glad to see finally happen. It was in 2016. Same time they did the sales tax on the automobiles, they eliminated the earned income tax for Oklahoma families. And for those who don't know, that tax credit is money that goes to poor working families. You have to be working to earn the income tax credit. And they eliminated it in 2016. They restored a portion of it in 2018. And they made it non-refundable, which means if your tax bill goes below zero, you didn't get any of the credit. And so this year they finally made it fully refundable. So, you know, say you were supposed to get back $200 in earned income tax credit, but you only owed $100 in taxes. So under the new rules, you'd get back $100. So better than nothing. It's the way the federal side of things works on the federal earned income tax. And, you know, again, I was teasing my Republican colleagues. Teasing might not be the right word, maybe chiding. So you guys do realize this is a Republican thing, right? You're paying people a little extra to give them incentive to work. It was something that Richard Nixon brought and Ronald Reagan expanded, and you guys act like you don't remember any of that. So,
Yeah. Do you think that there's possibly going to be a budget shortfall next year with all the taxes that they cut?
no, unless there's a real significant downturn in the economy. The bigger challenge, I think, will probably be 2, 3 years, 4 years out, you know, because that time will come.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, the economy seems to be doing fairly well. But it's boom and bust here in Oklahoma, you know, always has been. You can look over the last 2 decades, and I think we've had half of the years where we had some kind of revenue failure, including 6 in the last decade. And so it's coming. It's only a matter of when. And when it does, you know, I told my Republican colleagues, you folks will hate me because you'll need my vote. It was 28 years after the passage of State Question 640 before the legislature was finally able to raise taxes. And, you know, it should not be an easy thing to raise taxes. I get it. But it should also be a difficult thing to cut taxes. And to me, I talk to a lot of folks who initially say, oh, absolutely, we pay way too much in taxes. And as we talk about it, what I think most people believe is that they don't believe their taxes are being spent well. And if they believed that they were getting value for their money, they wouldn't mind paying for taxes. You know, here in Oklahoma City, I point to the MAPS projects, and people don't have a problem voting for an additional penny because they see the results of the money being spent, and they see the transformation that's happened in Oklahoma City. So we just need to invest wisely with the people's money and show good return for it. And then people, I think, will be willing to pay taxes.
Yeah. Episodes of the Green Corn Rebellion Show are sponsored by Oklahoma Progress Now. Oklahoma Progress Now is a 501c4 organization focused on building progressive power in Oklahoma. Their primary efforts are on developing progressive content for a 21st century audience, coalition, and capacity building across progressive organizations and causes, and working to see elected leaders who are more responsive to their constituents and the needs of the many. Areas of focus include progressive messaging and communications, coalition building and resource sharing, and focused progressive policy goals. You can check out their Twitch live streams, and they go live on Facebook at noon, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Please support this organization. It's a really great organization. It's just getting started here in Oklahoma. Thank you. Now enjoy the rest of the video. Could you tell me about redistricting?
So I can tell you specifically on mine, I got what I keep teasing people as an Audi belly button. So my district looks like a fat, kind of real wide number one, right? So it's got straight, goes up straight, and then it has kind of a curving piece on the top that looks like half of a roof. Well, underneath that roof sticking out to the west, there's now a little bump out where I pick up a neighborhood on the west side of the district. And so for me, it's almost entirely the same. My district could have stayed the same. I was within the margin of error already. So it surprised me a little bit that I picked up the little bump out. Generally speaking, House districts aren't that dissimilar to what they were. We did have a couple of districts that moved, and they took a couple of districts where somebody was terming out. Sean Roberts, for instance, who's up in the Tulsa, North Tulsa area, is terming out. And so they moved his district down and to the east side of Oklahoma County, created a new district there. There was a lot of input from members. Ultimately, I'll be upfront and say, even though we had submissions from the general public, they were just kind of patted on the head and ignored. And the legislature did as it chose to do. And, there were some cases behind the scenes where you saw members who were arguing over precincts because I want that precinct because I know they'll vote for me. And, it's just a case of them picking their voters instead of the voters picking their representatives. The Senate side looks significantly different. The districts, generally speaking, I think are a little more compact, which is good, a little less gerrymandered, but in some cases, looks can be deceiving. They may be more compact, but they're probably orchestrated the way they are to segregate voters. A good example of that is Senate District 15, which is Rob Standridge. And Senator Standridge's district starts south of Norman and goes up and kind of almost completely encompasses the city of Norman, but leaves Norman out.
Yeah.
He didn't want any of those radical, crazy Norman people in his district. So his district looks kind of weird. My own district, House District 94, has 4 state senators in it today. After redistricting, we will have 1.
Okay. That sounds good.
and for us, it's really, I think it's going to be good. We're going to have Leader Floyd, Senator Kay Floyd. So we'll be in District 46. And I'm excited to be able to show her around to all the various civic organizations and get her introduced to the people. She's such a terrific, terrific person. So
yeah.
And I'm not saying bad. I should backpedal just a little bit. I've had a great working relationship with Senator Brenda Stanley, who covers about half of my district. And even though she's a Republican, I'm a Democrat, we work together on a lot of things to support the Middale kids. And so I'm sad, I think, to lose that, but I'm certainly happy to have us consolidated into a single district, single Senate district, and great that it's Kay Floyd.
Yeah. I'm less interested with the House district map and more interested with the state Senate district map, because the state Senate district that I live in, state Senate 17, the current way that it's drawn, it makes almost no sense to me. So it's Shawnee, and then it goes into parts of Lincoln County and then Oklahoma County, and pretty much reaches over, I think there's like a precinct that's shared with what's the guy's name? Um, Jason Lowe. Like one precinct that's in his house district is in my state senate district. So
No
it's
kidding.
like, so if you wanted to like drive through my state senate district, like from like where I live, or maybe a little bit south of me, is like the south tip of the district, like the far northern tip, like it take you like an hour, maybe almost an hour and a half to get through it. And it made no sense to me at all growing up. And now they have it, I think it's still Shawnee, but it's also south part of Pottawatomie County and like a little bit of Oklahoma County, but like a different part of Oklahoma County. So it makes a lot more sense now, and um like looks less weird.
It's more
But yeah.
compact, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because before it just looked like I can't really describe it. It's kind of like a hook in a way. Because like it feels like it's just weird. But some of the state senate districts still look a little odd to me, but like in general, the map itself looks a lot better than it did before.
Yeah, Senator Paul Racino shared a portion of my district before redistricting, and he actually lives out Yukon Mustang area.
Yeah.
And so, his district starts out over there and kind of wraps around the lake and then gets real skinny. And at one point, it's about 3 blocks wide as it's coming across Oklahoma City.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the most bizarre thing. And then he winds up all the way over in my district. And, the bad, one of the really bad parts about those districts being drawn the way they are is that people never, ever see their representatives. Paul Racino didn't come knock doors over in my part of the district. And you'll never see him in a restaurant or at a grocery store or any place else on this side of town. Whereas in my own district, being a nice squatty number one, I run into people every time I'm out.
Yeah.
Sometimes, it's a little comical. I was having a late night dinner one night after a football game. Our daughter wanted to go out with her friends, and so we went out after the football game. And there were 6 separate people who all popped by the table and wanted to visit with me. So, but while that can be a bit of a chore sometimes, I mean, it's part of the job, and it's good that those folks feel like I'm approachable and that we see each other out in the community. So
That's good. Um, is there a possibility that the legislature could try to change the maps in a special session later this year?
yes,
How
so we
likely
have
do
to
you think
watch
that
out for that.
will? How likely do you think that'll happen?
Um, well, um, it all depends on who files for election and where they live. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if there was some of that kind of shenanigans going on with people who wind up with a challenger, and it's like, oh, hey, if we just draw the pen this way a little bit, they're no longer in my district. And that's unfortunate, but I suspect you'll have to keep our eyes open. That may happen. And with a supermajority being the way it is, I don't know how much we'll be able to do about it other than to just draw attention to it. So there'll probably a little bit of that. We'll get the official census numbers. They're expecting them mid-August, and that'll be the point where we'll take another look and say, hey, is there any place where, from a population density perspective, we need to adjust? We're not expecting too much of that. We based our numbers off of the preliminary census data, something called the American Family Survey, which the census does every year, and they kind of gather that together in a 5-year period. The difference between the American Family Census or the American Family Survey and the full census is that the survey is a statistical sampling, where the census is intended to be actually catching up with every single person who's out there. We didn't do anything with congressional districts. We weren't allowed to do that. Constitutionally, we're constrained until the official census data is out. And so we'll be back in special session this fall. We've been told probably early October-ish.
Okay. Um, Is there anything else you'd like to talk about or mention?
I finally had a bill that got passed and went all the way to the governor's desk. And it was vetoed in what I'm told is the shortest veto message ever given by the governor.
What was the bill?
So it was an expansion of the sales tax exemption that schools have. And the expansion would allow school booster clubs the same sales tax exemption. So your football quarterback club, your band parents, and those kinds of
Robotics.
things. Yeah, your robotics clubs. Exactly. As long as the school district sanctioned the booster club and it was part of the school, then they would get that exemption. Well, the governor said that it would unnecessarily complicate the tax code. It was 2 paragraphs long. I put together a graphic, and so the governor said it was overly would unnecessarily complex, and so in my press release, I pointed out that 122 legislators didn't find it too complex to pass. And I asked Grover if he could simplify it for the governor. And so this is probably why the governor vetoed it. It's because it only helps public school kids. If I'd have made it both public and private schools, then it probably would have been something he would sign. But I think the reason why he vetoed it, the veto came about an hour after my debate on the floor, where I called out the governor and House and Senate leadership for misleading folks, all the rank and file members, by telling them this and promising them this and then doing something else. And I said that they got the mine and we got shafted. And about an hour after that, we got the message from the governor's office. He was vetoing the bill. So,
oh, wow.
I kind of expected that. When you use strong language, things like that happen. People get irritated, and is what it is. I guess he figured that spanking me would somehow make a difference. It is something I will be talking about a lot in my community. It was a specific need that came out of one of the schools in my district. And so, I'll just point out that, the governor likes to dish. He likes to go take the tribes to task, for instance, but he can't seem to take it very well himself. Thin-skinned.
Yeah.
One other bill that I had in play would have expanded the state's rainy day fund, would have allowed us to save about $3.3 billion a year. But the Senate never heard that, even though it was unanimously passed in the House and every House member signed on as a co-author, which was unfortunate. It makes me question whether or not they're really interested in saving money or not. The only thing I can tell you is, even though the current budget saves money, it saves it in a place that's very easy for the legislature to tap. Had the money gone into the rainy day fund, there are only 3 ways you can get money out. And it's not easy for the legislature to do it at all. And so part of me just believes that the legislature would rather have the money at their fingertips where they can spend it as they choose to. The legislature did nothing meaningful. Matter of fact, they did nothing at all about EPIC charter schools.
Yeah.
In terms of transparency and accountability. And I think that's a real problem. 1 in 8 public school dollars is going to go to EPIC charter schools next year. If you can believe that, that's just unreal to think about the dollars. And we did nothing to improve transparency or accountability, even though we have a state auditor's report that's as damaging as it gets. And then you have a grand jury report, an initial report that's come out that just, holy smokes. You look at it and say, oh my God, what was going on?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the legislature didn't find it meaningful enough to do something about. We had, so securitization. I don't know if you remember hearing that term, but we had a historic ice storm and record low temperatures, right? And energy was, they were telling us we need to keep our lights off and, turn the temperature and thermostats down in our houses because energy was so scarce. Well, there was a handful of folks who made $4.5 billion off the people of Oklahoma, utility customers. And the legislature has come up with a scheme to basically convert that into an installment plan. So for the next 10 years to 30 years, depending on which utility company you go with, or you get your utilities from, you could be paying payments for anywhere from 10 years to 30 years on the amount that's owed. It's nothing more than a utility tax, right? It was the legislature saying, okay, what size payment will it take to get you into this? Like going to a bad used car salesman.
Yeah.
I had proposed that we take 10% of the money, the 4.5 billion, and we give it to attorneys to go attack those. Attack is not the right word, but to go after those people who profited unfairly off of this and see how much that money could be returned back to the people of Oklahoma. Because to me, I don't care whether the federal government is going to come in and rescue us on that 4.5 billion, or whether, the people of Oklahoma have to pay for it through a utility tax. It's still being paid to those same people. They don't care where the money comes from. They got it, right? There's nobody out there who's working to get it back for us. Nobody. And that's obscene. It's disgusting. We spent a lot of time this session on performative politics.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were aware, we're now a Second Amendment sanctuary state.
What exactly does that mean?
That means, by golly, you can't tell us what to do with our guns because it's unconstitutional. So the state of Kansas, roughly a decade ago, did something along these same lines where they declared themselves a Second Amendment sanctuary. And they said, here in the state of Kansas, all of those federal restrictions on guns don't apply here.
Okay.
And we said basically something similar. And I pointed out to the members, in 2013, there were two gentlemen who were arrested in Kansas for violating federal law on firearms. And they said, well, doesn't matter. We're a Second Amendment sanctuary state. One was a firearms dealer and the other guy was an old Vietnam War veteran. And the war veteran wanted to buy a silencer for his gun. And it's against federal law to do that.
Yeah.
Well, this gun dealer said, oh, no. We have the Second Amendment law here in Kansas now. That doesn't apply to us anymore. And so this guy bought it and went all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, no, sorry. There's something called the Supremacy Clause, which says that the U.S. Constitution and federal laws take precedence over state laws. Well, in spite of that, we did the exact same darn thing here in Oklahoma because, hey, we're smart about that Second Amendment. Yeah. The session could be summed up as performative politics. We beat our chest on so many things, talk about how great things are going to be. And when it's all said and done, nothing meaningful changed.
Yeah.
And that's sad because there's so much we could have done. I'll leave you with one of the things that we could have done. I proposed when the Senate and the House were stuck on the budget and they couldn't come to agreement on anything. I said, well, instead of doing the Senate plan or the House plan, here's a third option. Why don't we take some of those dollars that are in savings that we were talking about, whether we do a tax cut or we stick them under our pillowcase, and we create a tax incentive for small town, rural Oklahoma, for small businesses. If you have 25 employees or less and you commit to paying your employees $9 an hour, we'll add $2 more and bring them up to $11 an hour. And so that's year one. Year two, we went to $12 an hour. And then year three, $13 an hour. The idea was for us to provide a competitive wage for small town Oklahoma so that they stop losing people to Amazon and to Hobby Lobby. They have people that drive an hour and a half to work.
Yeah.
And guess what? They spend their money where they're working.
Yeah.
Instead of spending it at home. And so these folks are scrambling in small town Oklahoma trying to find people to work for them. And they can't, oftentimes I can't pay enough to match what's happening in the bigger towns. So this would have, I believe, fundamentally reshaped rural Oklahoma for the better. And unfortunately, I'm just a little barking chihuahua out at the Capitol. And
yeah, along with that, I see a similar thing with teachers, where teachers, they'll work in a school district, but they'll live 30 minutes to an hour away somewhere else. And I remember I had a handful of teachers that were like that whenever I was in school, and some of them now, they don't teach there anymore. So then, now you have to find new teachers, and sometimes you don't find the same amount of teachers every year. But I'd like to be able to pay teachers enough to be able to make sure they can live where they work, and and stay within the state and stuff like that, because that's community building.
it is.
I have at Shawnee High School. I just graduated there 5 years ago as of this month, and most of the teachers I had in school don't teach there anymore. And these weren't all people that retired. Some of them were relatively young, middle-aged people in their 30s and 40s and 50s, but some of them have left the state. Some of them have left other parts of the state. Some of them have left teaching, and that's mostly a pay issue. And a lot of these teachers left after 2018, after the teacher walkout.
Some of it's
Yeah.
pay. But I keep telling my colleagues out there's something more fundamental underneath all of that. Teachers are telling us you cannot pay us enough to work in the toxic conditions you have created for us in our classrooms.
Yeah.
And they don't want to have to work not just during the day, but take homework home, do all their planning at home, because they no longer have a planning period because you can't find substitute teachers. And so they're scrambling all day, oversized classrooms. And the thing that I think is the biggest problem across Oklahoma is childhood trauma. You have so many teachers that are being asked to do more than teach. They're being asked to take care of childhood, make sure that children are being fed, make sure they're not being abused. And you have to deal with childhood discipline and all of these things that are in a child's life, all the traumas that they carry around with them in this invisible backpack. Those are things that keep a teacher from being successful in the classroom. And when people are not feeling successful, they leave.
Mm-hmm.
They go to other states because other states come poach our teachers. They know that our teachers can do more with less than just about any other teacher in any other state in the nation, because we forced them to here in Oklahoma. And our teachers know how to deal with those kinds of things. So put them in a better environment where they have more resources, where the kids are not as traumatized, and watch them succeed. So to me, pay is always an issue, but until we really deal with the issue of childhood trauma, we won't fix that. And, we had an opportunity to do that this session. I mentioned earlier, it was 2016. We voted for state question 780 and 781. Yeah. 780 said, we're going to decriminalize things. And because we decriminalize, we will probably send less people to prison, right? 781 said, take any money that you save and put it into mental health and substance abuse treatment in all 77 counties in Oklahoma. And today we have put zero into that.
Yeah. That's so crazy.
Yeah. It's beyond frustrating. The people of Oklahoma told us to do something, and the legislature has just thumbed their nose at them. And I don't know the best way to get people to remember that. But every year in the budget, I have asked the same question. How much of this money is going into the state question 781 fund? The answer is none.
Wow. That was one of the first times I ever got to vote too. That was 2016. I was excited to vote for that.
Yeah. We had an opportunity to fundamentally change the course of state of Oklahoma. So yes, we're going to send less people to prison. But we really need to be getting those people help and treatment. And if we're not, guess what? They're going to wind up in prison again. And that's not good for anybody. It's not good for the families. It's not good for the prison system. It's certainly not good for those people who needed help.
Yeah.
Not incarceration. But we're so busy, giving everybody $82 instead of doing what the people of Oklahoma told us to do.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on. It means a lot. Where can we find you on social media?
So Fugate for HD94 on Facebook. And on Twitter, it's just a Fugate at a Fugate. And I do have a presence on Insta, but I'm not really there. Much, not on TikTok. Yeah.
That's the new frontier for politicians. I'm telling you.
I see that, in my old career, I would have been on TikTok. I was the director of new media technologies for the Oklahoman for 2 decades. And so, I was one of the first on Friendster and on MySpace and and my social media goes all the way back. It predates AOL all the way back to the days of CompuServe and the old bulletin board system. So long time
know
user.
what that is.
Think dial-up modem. So the
I
very
know
first
dial-up. I know about dial-up.
Very first program I wrote an assembler program for terminal emulation on an old Commodore 64. Because I didn't have anything that would talk to the modem that I had at the house. And so old geek at heart. And now I have no idea what to do on TikTok. And I'm not on Clubhouse either. And I'm trying to think of what else is new out there. I don't do Reddit.
Yeah. Reddit, you don't like some things you just don't want to be on. Reddit, you don't want to be on. Like, trust me, you don't. It's I'm on Reddit kind of a little bit, mostly to promote the show and kind of just to scope things out. But it's a way to promote things if you want to promote things. But like in terms of like conversation, it's kind of like Twitter, but like maybe a little worse. I don't know.
Yeah.
I still think Twitter's can be toxic, like really bad. But Reddit isn't adding anything new for you. I'll just say that.
Well, it beats like 4chan, 8chan.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That you definitely want to stay away from that. Oh wow.
See, I was more interested when Reddit actually sprung up in the back end technology that they were using. Mm-hmm. We replicated some of it at the Oklahoman, and high volume, high availability, high scalability, really, really great stuff. But I don't do that anymore. Now I just sit in front of Capitol buildings and in virtual space. So, hey, thank you for having me on tonight. I'm honored. It's always great to catch up with you. Good to see you.